Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another tantalizing episode of the Locker Room Life podcast, episode 8, here with my boy Logan. We're just here to chop it up, just talk about life, talk about everything that's happening in life, and more importantly, we got another good episode for you. You want to take it away and leak the bag a little bit on who we got on this episode?
Yeah, it's an absolute banger of an episode. I can't say more. I mean, I'm probably a little biased on that end. He was very close to me, very dear to my hockey career and success, honestly. And he's amazing. And there's really a lot of players right now. We're going through the game and they're experiencing what everyone may be their biggest fear. Some parents, some coaches, some general managers, agents and advisors. And this man really, he guided the way for me as a person, as an athlete, and he's just absolutely unbelievable. Gold star is just first class human, first class agent, so professional with everything, but still has that family feel. And I'm excited for this episode to come out. It's going to be really good for the younger people watching it coming up. If you don't know you're good enough to get an advisor, if you're on the edge of where you're paying for an advisor or not paying for an advisor, there's many different things that are thrown at parents and kids at all ages. So it's very interesting.
So I thought, and we talked about it, a good lead into this episode is talking about the overall landscape of junior hockey, right? Like we've all heard the CHL ruling is obviously shaking up the junior hockey world on a lot of, you can look at it in two different perspectives. The first thing is competition. I believe that college hockey with this ruling is going to be the strongest entity out there. I've always loved college hockey, as you know that. But I just think more so now on a lot of different levels, mainly because it's, again, giving a lot of players, especially in Canada, a lot of different options, but also vice versa. American players can now look at the possibility of actually playing in Canada. Does it stray the lines a little bit and make it a headache for a lot of colleges and a lot of programs as a whole? Yes. But I think that was already happening and grumbling under the surface anyway with the college transfer portal, allowing players to not have to sit out a year and just say, you know what, I don't really want to play here anymore. I see there's another opportunity, and a lot of coaches being able to look at other players that are at other schools. So there's no other way to say it other than I believe it's the wild, wild west up there right now. The byproduct of all that, as in a topic that I really want to discuss with you, is the top CHL players that are in the news that have been leaving because you're hearing a lot of the NIL money that's being thrown to them from colleges as the incentivizing factors to then, again, power up college hockey to then make it into a strong entity. I don't know. Open conversation, buddy. What are you thinking?
Man, it's very interesting. It makes me think just about NFL and college football and all those things. Like you see guys genuinely, obviously it's that next level up, but you see guys, the money that's being thrown at some of these players is astronomical, more than families make in their whole lifetime for a season of football. And not knocking them at all, like great hustle. People are staying in college to not go play professional because of this money. And I think it's it's public knowledge. I've heard the $250K for Porter Matone at Penn State. I've heard also on different occasions that Penn State's been throwing a lot of money around at the recruits. We can talk off. I've heard that since NIL has come into the picture with everything. And CHL, the big thing was that players could be a professional. They could make money, and you're living a professional in a small suburb of Ontario, wherever you are, but OHL specifically. And you're kind of like the man if you're the best player around. It's crazy. It really is. And I think it's going to turn more into a league that's a developmental league. You're not going to see many players going straight from the CHL to professional hockey. I think it's going to change a lot. I wouldn't be surprised. This might be a hot take, but I wouldn't be surprised if this pushes the OHL and the Q to make a 14 draft for the players, because players are going to be leaving earlier. If they have an opportunity to go develop in college at the best point, even if it's not necessarily all the money in the world being thrown at them, but I think the OHL money is just going to become obsolete. It's just stipends. It's just money that you live off of and you get a check a week. So it's not, even 25K straight up off the bat. And you're just getting that for a year, every year for 4 years. You're like, you don't need to do anything. You're good. So it's very interesting. The whole landscape it's changing, and I'm eager to see what happens with it.
I think it's the best thing to do from here is explain a little bit more for the listeners that aren't so much inclined into the whole, just a broad overview of what's happening here. So essentially back in the day when you played junior, it was the simplest way to explain it is it was an either or situation. You could either play in Canada in what was called, there's a bunch of leagues that embody the Canadian Hockey League. Essentially once you went into the CHL, you then foregoed your amateur status and now were considered to be a professional, because that road traditionally would then lead you to the NHL, the AHL, and going directly from there. Now, but the other side of the road was if you went to play college, then that was a completely different road, lack of a better term, that you were taking in order for you to play and pursue your hockey career. So that's the easiest way to explain it to somebody that would not know what this whole situation is that we're talking about. If my wife's listening, she'd be like, I have no idea what this is. So I wanted to outline that. I love you, babe, but this is something for you.
I'm so sorry to interject and say this, but if I would have stepped up my game a little more and been a little more decent / better at hockey, I could have potentially made the Oshawa Generals in the O and foregone my NCAA status. But this year I would be aging out and I'd be able, that's some messed up stuff right there. Couldn't play in any preseason games. So another kind of putting in an example, you can't play any before the rule of allowing the CHL players to play in the NCAA now. You couldn't play in any of their preseason games. Those were only camp scrimmages, only practices. And the preseason games were really where they made their decisions. They pulled a lot, the main guys they wanted into 2 different teams and saw how you did against another OHL teams, 2 different teams. And it's very interesting. And that's really where they do a lot of their picking. They have an all-star game, but it's wild. It really is. And it's going to change the landscape forever because there's no going back after this. It's done.
Exactly. So now, again, to roll it back to the listeners that are learning this whole process, now players are allowed to play in the CHL. And if they wish to not play in the CHL, they can now play college hockey and not be penalized of any kind. So what it's causing is a lot of different movements on a lot of different levels. One, on the player side, a lot of different options, which I think is a complete positive of the whole situation. I am always in favor of players having the most options for them to play, further their careers. Well, but from that point on, the thing that I do not agree with what is happening is being these parts that these clubs are just going to start taking property of. Yeah. Now, to your point with the draft, the 14 draft, like being like, they're going to start drafting these kids younger and younger so that they can own their rights, which I do not think is right. And it should not be happening.
I don't know if you knew this, Frank, and for our listeners out there, but every OHL team for the past however many years hockey has been a thing, because the OHL was the leader for a very long time in producing the most professional hockey players. But every NHL player, they have an agreement with NHL. Every NHL player that they send to the NHL, they get paid a boatload of money. That they get paid a ton of money. And this rule also completely shuts that out. Basically turns it off, makes it obsolete, nothing. Because all these kids who are the highest level are going to go to these colleges. It's been the biggest and best thing for the past however many years now. So it's very interesting. And to your point of having the options, I think it's good for it's a trickle-down effect. Like, it's very good for the elite of the elite players. It's amazing for the elite of the elite players. But as we were just talking to another podcast guest, a good friend of mine, now a good friend of Frank's, like, you're not going to see small town hockey stories anymore. A kid who plays in Wisconsin and they only have a lake to skate on. You're not going to see that anymore. That is gone out the window for sure. That is not going to happen just because of the trickle down effect. And to put that in more perspective, it's where this barrier blocked the CHL guys from coming into the NCAA. Now that barrier is completely broken, and those top level guys who are just as good as the top level guys down here in the NCAA and USHL and different junior leagues are going to push everyone who, however many people it is, they're going to push the lower half of almost all of these rosters of every junior team to the next level down. And it changes a lot of trajectory on the youth/junior level for that, because that pushes guys back into youth, that pushes guys back into youth 18 AAA, youth 16 AAA. Like those young guys who get the chance to go up and play juniors, like they just get sent right back down when those rollbacks come. So it's very interesting. It's going to change hockey forever.
I mean, amateurism, especially in college sports, we all know with now, again, segue into another subject, but the NIL, right? The fight that had been the eternal fight for student athletes was, why are the colleges going to make all this money and I get nothing? There's always that famous story of, I don't know if you've seen the Fab Four, right? Chris Webber looking through, pumping gas, a poor college student, and he's at the University of Michigan selling his jersey in the window, and they're making boatloads of money on selling his jersey. So again, but if you look at this from a full circle standpoint, it's another reason for college sports to be flexing their pockets, because now with the conversations of the NIL deals, that they're now incentivizing players to not play in the CHL to now make even more money playing in college hockey. My only thing to this is, what does it then become? Does it then become the CHL will then be getting sponsorship from either wealthy boosters, wealthy alumni, to then have a bigger pot to then try to incentivize other players? It's just going to be this massive melee of, and when I say the Wild West, it literally is going to be the Wild West.
No,
it's going to be who's got the deepest pockets, but more importantly,
the legacy
from a player standpoint too. You got to think about it, dude. Like, I was playing juniors when they have cell phones, and over to player standpoint, a 16-year-old will be making a decision for their future right then and there, where they could be making more than most people in America make working a job that they went to college for and have been working 5 to 6 years for. Isn't that insane? It's insane to even think about the net effect of this, what this is going to become in 4 to 5 years. Are you with me, brother?
Dude, they're literally 1% incomers in college. It's like some are 0.0001%ers. Like, it's just like college athletes are, I don't want to say it's turning into a gimmick, because that's not what I think. I love college sports. I think college sports, I love America. I love college sports. I think it's what makes college, one of the things that makes America great is college sports. College sports are amazing. And the feeling that you get, it's so crazy. We were literally just talking about this. The feeling that you get when you're watching a sport or doing any of that. Sorry to segue a little bit, but just fires me up. I want to run through a wall right now. 10:17 p.m. EST time. I'm fired up. But to the NIL point, I think, man, it's going to be crazy. I'm interested to see how my kids' generation is going to be with kind of the whole of everything. Because I think, honestly, I mean, I've heard stories, just rumblings of kids being paid youth money, like to go, especially in hockey, kids being paid or expenses being full ride. You're covered on your food, your gas, your living, your car, everything to just come play for this youth team. I think with this, it adds a whole other layer to the thing. Like, who can get me literally, like what college has turned into, like what youth team can get me the most NIL money and move. Obviously you want to look at guys for like programs for what they are and producing good talent. But like you were saying, whoever has deeper pockets, kids are going to start looking like their parents are going to be pressuring them. It's just something that's going to happen, and it's life-changing money. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it is at the same time. It really is. I feel very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde about it.
Well, let's not be foolish about it and blind to the fact that this has been happening. It's been happening under the surface
forever.
It's just now everything, I believe, is out in the open. Everyone has their cards on the table. and it's going to be a full out
brawl.
It's just going to be a full out brawl,
Brawl.
and figuratively speaking, in regards to, but the thing I do not agree with is the collateralization of these players. And to your point, also, I know you refer to it all the time, Logan, as well too. Is why did you stop playing hockey? You stopped playing hockey because you just were tired of being another piece, movable piece, replaceable piece. And I think now, again, the psyche of a player, and we're players first and foremost, the psyche of a player, you're going to see a lot of those changes because the pressures at a younger age to live up to expectations, to have to be something that they're not, to have to get a bigger deal than so-and-so. It's just, I mean, it's going to be interesting, man. We're going to talk about, we're going to be covering it here, but it's a topic.
We'll keep everyone updated for many years to come. It's just the surface of the CHL talks, and shit, it's happened only a few months ago and things are already pretty crazy. So, I mean, it's honestly the perfect segue into, like I was saying, one of our amazing guests on the show, and just an absolute great friend of mine, brother to me, my advisor, Patrick Bedell. Unbelievable. Such a player first advisor, really knows his shit, has some awesome stories, and is just amazing. I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, and I think it brings up he goes really into detail of a lot of different things. There's a difference between Patty. He is a certified player agent.
NHLPA certified.
NHLPA certified agent. Now, a lot of people don't know out there what's been grumbling around on this in the hockey world is these advisors. Now, Logan, maybe you can dive a little bit deeper into, because I do want to talk about it, because there's a couple things
of course.
I want to, and the number one thing I want to say on it is this, and Patty says it as well, and it's the truth behind anything. I believe that if you can play, you will be found. Glenn Heffron said it, USHL commissioner.
For sure.
Patty Bedell said it. A lot of higher officials that we've interviewed and talked to have the same point of view. Now, again, in the social media, there's been this new age thinking that you need somebody to pick up the phone and make a call for you. And don't get me wrong, I do agree with it, but there's also another side of it that I'm not in total agreement with, because I do believe that it's a little bit of some snake oil in there.
There's a lot of, some people are drinking the Kool-Aid extremely a lot. It's crazy. Some of these advisors are, I'm going to put it right, like you said, cards on the table. I'm putting my cards on the table right now. Some of these advisors are snakes and do not want anything but your pockets. And that is 100% truth, along with, I may be pulling shots sometimes, but whatever. Same with some junior teams and most junior teams. If you're going to a main camp, if you're going to any of that, most of those guys, yeah, you could be seen, you could be picked up on different things, but they need to make money. They're a business. They don't respect the fact, some of them, I've experienced it. Like, you don't respect the fact that you've drove halfway across the country to come to their camp, and you're just placed on a 4-team circuit that is obviously not the guys who are going to be picked. And it's just the guys who are just out there skating. So it's very interesting. And diving into it with advisors, it's like Patty says it. You shouldn't be paying for an advisor. This advisor, a correct advisor / agent, and Patty knows this. He knew it ever since he was a very young lad. When he was my advisor when I was young, he wants to be a professional, and being a professional is building this person, building this athlete. And then after all of that and all of your hard work, which is really an agent's job, is to then reap the benefits of everything that you've helped build. And that's by getting a percentage of a professional contract when you go play professional hockey. And I think it just gets even more toxic with NIL. Like, people are just going to start charging. Like, it's just going to be a thing for advisors. Like, obviously you'll have the top firms. Like, it's literally like anywhere else, accounting, business. You have the top firms. You have Gold Star, you have Org Group. You have a few more. CAA. I knew there was one more I was missing off the top of my head. And there's one more that is very big, but it's interesting. It very much so is. And it's going to change the landscape a lot. I think we're going to see a lot more NHLPA certified licenses getting dished out soon. I think that just for the simple fact that people are going to start over applying to become an agent, Everyone I've seen wants to become an agent after hockey is done. And there's been a few people who I've came across in my life. Shout out Blake Lewis. He's amazing. He is Icebreakers Advisor Agency. Young kid. He's awesome. And then there's other people, I'm not going to say their names, but there's other people I've ran into who just want to charge you $3,000 a month for him to help you, for him to help guide you, and then take 20% of your salary or 10% of your salary once you become a professional athlete. So it's very interesting. And I'm absolutely blessed and eternally grateful that Patrick Bedell was my advisor. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He was amazing. And he's a big shot now.
He is. Yeah, you guys are here. Spurred off. Love to see him. He's expanded not only in hockey, he's really in the entertainment as well, with him being a big figure at the firm. So again, moral of the story here before we get to the interview is that players, do your homework.
For sure.
Most importantly, believe in yourself first and foremost, more than anything. Have a vision, have a plan. And those that are fortunate to have great parents as well with you, really build that unity and that force with your parents. Are your parents, and we talk about all the time on this podcast, our biggest supporters, our biggest support system, and really build that plan and that vision together. I know that there's a lot of pressures out there, but you know what? You need to make sure that you believe in yourself first and foremost. You be the best player that you can. Do the things that you can take care of. Control your controllables, right? But we hope you enjoy this interview. Patrick Bedell.
Welcome back to the Locker Room Life podcast. Here with my good buddy, Frank. I have one of my best friends in the entire world. I've known him since I was a very young kid. My former agent when I was a hockey player, Patrick Bedell. He works with Gold Star. The man is a jack of all trades. That's all I can say. He does so many different things, and he's just an absolutely unbelievable person, unbelievable businessman, and human. So happy to have you, Patty, and excited to dive into this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so happy to be here, Logan. I mean, it's just seeing you become the person you've become. It's amazing. Like, you're one of my favorite people in the world. I just see you. You are a superstar, but shoot, there's a stock in you. I'm already bought in. So, but other people should too. And Frank, it's nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you. Before, I know, Logan, you want to kind of jump in, but before anything, I need to know, Pat, in this young 6'4" gazelle, how did you sign and how did this all come about? I need to know the root of this story.
It was around COVID, I believe. Like we were, and so, I mean, I had a very interesting career path. My agency, so I was involved in the agency world and got a great start at an agency that's built itself to be really good. But at the time, I decided to go out on my own and partner up with one of my best buddies in the world from home, one of my high school friends who was a pro baseball player. And I had been an agent in hockey and baseball. I'm giving you the long story of how I got to Logan. But we came together and we opened up an agency. It was, like I said, it was probably around 2018. And we came together and we did a lot of scouting through. I would watch. I didn't sleep much. I'd watch a lot of hockey, a lot of baseball. And I mean, Logan was a hard player to miss. I mean, he was 14 and he was double my height. So he was easy to see and he could make plays. Like he knew the game really, really well. I think the one thing that we always worked on was getting that foot speed there, but the brain was always something that helped him. And with that size, a bounce here, a bounce there goes different. He could be doing something else entirely right now, but we all have our own path. And I mean, Logan kills. He's a kid, and now me at 30, I can call him a kid, but he's a kid, and he is accomplishing so much. The sky's the limit. These are things that I see in parts of my personality that I see in him, and it's nice to be on this side of it. Like, hopefully, I instilled some of it. Obviously, he's got an amazing family that did the same thing, but it's good to be entrepreneurial. It's good to be a little fearless.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably break it down a little more better than you can. I know how many people you've dealt with. I remember it like the back of my hand. You saw me on Live Barn playing at Chiller North against the San Jose Sharks. It was one of the first tournaments of the year in 2019. It was like a 7:30 a.m. game. And that was the game you told me you were watching. And you called me, and all these agents, every agency was asking, hey, give us $5,000 every month to represent you and be your agent. And Patty called my dad and was like, my dad, obviously you guys know my father. And he was like, how much is it? And Patty was like, nothing. And he's, well, I think we found your guy. And it turned into the most fruitful, amazing relationship I could have ever had. And just so grateful for everything. And you definitely have instilled the businessman side of me and hockey and everything into it. So I can't thank you enough. And enough of the sappiness. Let's move into this. I'll get into another sappy story later. That's one of my favorite hockey stories. But I know you were talking about with Jake and everything. You started it and really wanted to take off. But what inspired you to do that? I know you were a hockey player before. Like, what inspired you to go into sports and become an agent?
Well, I mean, I had always known I was going to do this. I remember it's such an interesting story because I remember I always was very aware of the business side. And I was like fourth grade or fifth grade, and they used to, I don't know if they still do it, but they gave us a test to see how tall you'd become. And they were like, you're not growing anymore. Like, doctors were like, you're done. And I'm a goalie. So I'm 5'6". I knew I was done. Went to my mom's car and I'm like, I'm a kid. I'm 11 years old. And I'm balling. I'm like, I just found out I'm not making the NHL. So that day I was like, all right, I can still play, but this is now not an NHL playing scenario. This is NHL working scenario. And in high school, people used to, I somehow had always come in contact with NHL prospects or people that were involved in sports, even when I was 15, 16. But even then, all my friends in school were like, you'll represent me. And I ended up representing a bunch of them in baseball. But when we were 16, everybody knew I was going to be the agent.
So a little bit kind of when you started too, because I mean, with obviously the birth of the internet and everything that technology has brought us just in the past couple of years, walk us through a little bit of kind of just the whole process of finding clients, prospecting clients. Like what was kind of your mode mentally to kind of make it all happen?
Yeah, I think early on, it's trying to find a niche and it's trying to think outside the box. It's something I tell people all the time when they call. I try and take as many calls from kids that need advice or whatever. I try and tell them the same thing, but it actually applies to this is how are you going to get clients that's different than everybody else? If I'm at the time 23 or 24-year-old Pat Bedell, like with Jake had more pedigree than me with baseball because he had played at such a high level, but hockey wise, my only pedigree was a few years. Well, at that point, I guess 5 years scouting and coaching, but still compared to some of the huge agencies, not enough. So I wouldn't go after as often like the top 15, 20 kids. Now I do that. But back then it was trying to be creative and also find market deficiencies and or inefficiencies. The players that I always found that there was it's funny enough size. It was very relevant to this because either you found the players that were big, that had the pro frame already, which limited the floor or at least kept it to a level that was somewhat, unfortunately or fortunately, a kid that's 6'6" is going to get 10 more times and 10 more tries than a kid that's 5'8". But on the other side of the equation, there's a lot of 5'8s 5'9s that don't get the second look at the beginning and then fight their way into a situation. So just trying to find those players around the country or the world. It's actually how I ended up getting in with Gold Star was I found that there was a lot of players that were from countries like Latvia and Kazakhstan and that were being left out of the agency craze. Everybody is an agent in North America. There were a lot of players over there that I was able to go in and take, and that one situation leads you to another. But I always, I mean, what I look for, it's funny enough, what I looked for in a player then is a little bit different than what I look for now. I think play wise, like guys that see the game, that's an obvious trait that like hockey sense, hockey IQ, whatever you want to call it, intelligence on the ice is everything. But and you can most people that know the game can watch a player and say, all right, this player's got this or he's got some ability. Yeah, scouting is an important part of this, but I've found as I've gone on how much the mind otherwise is like the guys that are dogs that want it and truly want it. I've been with players that really, really want it, and there's other players that don't. And the ones that really want it, I mean, it plays a role in everything. This is such a hard path. Logue is one example, but there are guys that I've represented to, obviously I joined them a little later in their careers because I wasn't old enough, but that have played till the age of 38, 39, and in their pro careers, a player that played in the NHL and I was his agent towards the end of his career. You have to be a dog. You have to be like going out. It is not an easy life. It is not, it's glamorized from our TV shows and our podcasts this is not easy. Like I think a lot of it covering that stuff up, like we're covering that stuff up with the bro culture and I don't have a problem with it, but it is hard. And it is really hard mentally. It is really hard on your family. It is really hard on everything. And there's a moment in a player's career. I see it with guys in their NHL draft year. I see it when they're in pro hockey where they hit their moment. This is the adversity. Are you going to fold or are you going to handle it and be strong? And it really comes down to the players that I can tell you a player who's not going to make it by the age of 20. Like I can tell you it based on the way that they handle adversity and the way that they handle the day in, day out. Some people change, and I hope at some point I'm proven wrong on some guys. But I think you can kind of tell, like if somebody at 2021 is just there, when it goes and gets tough, it doesn't matter how much skill you have. You'll get to you can have NHL superstardom level ability. When you get to the NHL and you're able to be the NHL superstar, the work ethic, the determination, the grit, I keep using dog, but that's the mentality. That's when it gets questioned. And I've learned a lot from a lot of people in the NHL about that. So I think there's the hockey player, and then there's the human that you're investing in, which is almost, if not more important. I'm rambling on this topic, but there are tons of players. You could watch them. I mean, I won't name guys in the NHL, but guys that no one thought they'd get to the NHL. They really don't have any business being in the NHL, but they've got some of those core foundation abilities, but they want it and they'll do anything for it. And guys that fight, guys that, battle every day. I signed a deal recently for a kid that his college coach tells me or said to me at some point recently, like he didn't have any business getting where he got, but he just signed a pretty nice pro deal for his second contract pro, and he's making a hell of a lot more than most guys on AHL deals. He's on an AHL contract, but AHL money that were draft picks. So it literally comes down to being a good person, a locker room guy, all that jazz.
In scouting, so we kind of see that there's ebbs and flows of, I guess, trends for player evaluation, right? Like when I say that, remember back in the day, it was like the big, gritty, 6'4", 200-plus pounder. And then the game kind of went small, right? And then it's kind of shifts in the draft. And I'd like to hear your perspective on kind of your thinking. Did that change? Do you follow the quote-unquote trends in the market? And how does that kind of play into your overall evaluation process?
The initial evaluation is all about, I don't care what the flavor of the week is. A good hockey player is a good hockey player. And our trajectory of what you end up seeing, and it's hockey somewhat can be characterized. And I'd say there's a lot of followers. And I think at the NHL level, we see teams moving in directions of teams that are successful. We're going to see I think through things like everything over the past year, you're going to see a lot more of the physical, hard to play against. Like that's really a huge point of contention. I know or not a point of focus. And I know from some of my guys that the NHL teams are paying a lot of attention, guys that are in the draft that are like that are hard to play against, and they'll build out from there. But again, that goes to the off ice as well. But anyway, everybody wants to emulate who's been successful. We see it all the time. And it's a peculiar kind of marketplace for that reason. I don't think it's as relevant in other sports, having worked in baseball, like those scouts. And I don't know if the scouting culture changes. I think it's a lot of the decision making, roster building. That's where we see the changes. But other sports don't have such a flavor of the week component. It's in hockey, it's literally year to year. You can see it change quickly year to year. So from an agent's perspective, I'm looking for players that are good. And the runway is so long. I'm looking at a 14, 15-year-old player, and I tell that to people. I come across people in my day-to-day life that are high up in so many different worlds of entertainment and sport, and they're like, other sports people are like, what are you're watching 14 and 15-year-olds play? It's because they don't get it. And it's a totally different world. Like a lot of the top baseball players, that's one thing that I saw when I was a baseball agent, was there are first rounders that don't have agents like 16 months before their draft year, which is nutty, bananas. Doesn't happen. In hockey, those guys they're on the third agent at that time. So I think if I'm watching a player that young, who can skate, who's got the hockey sense, like who can make plays, skill, and then you have to, it's like it's a pretty interesting thing because you look at it like a general manager. You're like, all right, if I'm going to devote this much time to this many players, they need to have something that puts them above everybody else. It could be one skill, and then you build out from there. But the long and short of it is the timeline is so long that you're not playing games on who's going to fit in an NHL roster next year. At least when you're going for the young players, you're rather focusing on who's a quality hockey player.
Yeah, and I think you hit so many good points there. And just kind of from your perspective, I know that you gave a lot of things that kind of picked up for these hockey players along the way, the lessons that you learned from them, just being a dog. Like you got to be obsessed with it. You got to have that sacrifice from yourself, your family, everyone. Like I know I can attest, like I moved away when I was just turned 15 years old. Like it's a very, very big sacrifice to become a high level hockey player. And I mean, on the agent side, what is like a big lesson that you took away from doing these things, tracking these players from 14 years old, just like the biggest takeaway that you've learned just doing this for so long?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's an agent advice. I give advice all the time on how to become an agent, but like that if I could tell myself from the beginning, once I was an agent, I would say, one, you're not going to fix people. Like you can try, and you may fix some people, but you're not going to fix everybody. There's been a lot of opportunity. When you're an agent, you're putting your opportunity with somebody else's. Their success is your success. So you end up riding and dying with, which is a great thing, but also a lot of heartache. I'd rather go down with people that are giving their best. And I think that is a lesson that I learned is it does matter, the off ice and the who people are. I've heard many other agents say that internally and externally, how much that matters. And it does. I think the doing it because you love it is something that is tricky too. I think as an agent, it's funny because I've had this conversation as well with a lot of agents. You chase this so hard. We have to be dogs. I'm not kidding. There were nights and weeks where I slept very little, made very little money. The beginning of this, when COVID came and it kind of screwed everything up again, but I was an attorney, and I was willingly giving myself to a job that paid me nearly nothing at the start. And I had to do that. And I've heard many other agents tell similar stories. And then they get to a point, they're like, shit, Like, I give so much, and I've done it, but it's so funny too, because I've heard NHL players say this after their first game or a stretch of time in the first NHL. You're like, now what? Like, what's next? Like, you feel like almost. It's so funny because I think it's relevant for life too. If you look for one goal, and you're like, now I've got that goal, you're kind of left with this empty feeling. So I would bring that back to remembering why you do it, keeping the love of it, keeping the love of the game. And I think you do that best by being, if you became an agent or you in hockey for the money, then you did it wrong. You should have been an agent in basketball or like theater or something out. Like, for hockey, you have to love this. And I think keeping that love sometimes means that you have to do things that retain that. And I think every player I work with, I have a level of friendship, of a belief in as a human being. And if you say it with Logue, like, I don't look at this like it's a transactional hockey based relationship, because that's not the way I would do anything. There needs to be more. And I think that's by having it be a life sort of guidance, partnership.
Yeah. I mean, just like you said, a great thing there, and just like the heartache through it. I can't tell you how many times, probably on both my hands, that I called Patty crying and just being upset through adversity and different things like that. And it's just like, having an agent is more than just what he said, more than just a transactional thing. It's more than just being paid every year on a dividend or whatever it is. You have to have someone that you can see yourself going to the NHL with and spending the rest of your life with, and being part of your family. And it's something that you do so well. You create relationships amazingly, and it's just such a pleasure to watch you grow. I mean, from me as a kid being 15, and like you said, you didn't have many clients, you didn't have many people who were paying you things, and it's just to see where you are now. It's crazy. It blows my mind as well.
Well, while you were talking, I thought about the moment that you were drafted into the Ontario League, and just how I remember calling you and everybody was losing. I'm an emotional guy. But that's why you do this. Realistically, if you can do this as an agent, if you have the ability, and not everybody does, so I'm very fortunate, but like the schooling, the business sense, all that stuff, I could be working and making so much money. I could be doing so many other things like that. I can actually sleep. But like those moments, they're just amazing
Patty.
moments.
Man, real quick before we go into the next topic of things, just like, I told Frank that story one of the first times we ever talked, and it's just like, for everyone out there, you're not going to be able to find an agent as good as mine. I was sitting there all day long, staring at the draft clock, waiting for people to call me, waiting for something. And Patty stayed on the phone with me all day and played NHL 20 with me all day long. And before I get off, before the 15th round, before my second to last pick in the OHL draft, whatever it was. No, it was 286. And he calls me. He's, oh my God, Erie's calling me. I gotta get off. And I'm like, oh boy. And that was the big team that was gonna pick me up. And he was like, hey, Erie has locked you in at pick 287. And he's like, you gotta hope for the best. And we just gotta see how this round goes. And the pick before at 286, Oshawa never even reached out, never even called, never did anything, never talked to Patty. They picked me, and I'll never forget it. It was crazy. It was madness. My dad and myself were just crying. It was unbelievable. Just an awesome experience, and I will never ever forget that.
Me neither. Like, it's funny. I've been a part of a lot of drafts now at this point. I've had players that are drafted in the second round of the NHL draft. I don't know if they were as memorable as that. And I think that's the funny part of life, is sometimes the things that you on paper should carry the weight that they carry. It's not about that. And it's about so much more. And I think for me as an agent, I always chase opportunities to be able to have the life experiences and wins versus the money. It's not getting a good contract for a guy that's in his third year or third pro contract. Yeah, it's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. I give it just as much importance as anything else. Obviously, that's what feeds me. But like the OHL draft or that college commitment or that NHL pick, obviously, for someone that you've been through it with, I think those are the life moments. That's when you're on your deathbed and you think back to those moments.
That's awesome, man. It's really cool to see the dynamic because, like you said, Pat, it's really kind of glorified through the media, like agents and players, but really just attesting to the fact that it's an investment on both sides, right? Like it's an investment on the player level and it's an investment on the agent level. And you guys are kind of investing in each other where you're really just making sure that you're part of their life just as much as you guys are part of each other's lives. And you're like, and just to see the relationship that you have with Logan's family still to this day. And it's amazing to see. And a lot of people don't understand that. And maybe you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on you're really a part of their life. It isn't just, like you said, a transactional end of it. It's actually their life, all aspects of it, and making sure that you guys are kind of going through that journey together.
Yeah. It's, I try and be very, and I think good agents do try and be very supportive. I always tell my players, like, I need them to tell, my biggest thing is I need you to tell me. I can only be as good an agent as you let me be. The stuff on the outside, getting you opportunities, the things you think an agent is, I'm going to be real with most people. Like, it's going to happen. I always tell players when I'm recruiting them, 70%, 60 to 70% of what's going to happen is going to happen. I don't care who your agent is. It could be the person on the corner, or it could be me, or it could be the biggest agent in the NHL. There's 10, so that's all you. Like, whatever happens, that's you. Then there's 10%ish is your coach, and then the rest is your agent. We move the needle, but it's up to you. And I think there's so much, the other stuff is we're handling all your business. So the business is entirely us. And by doing that also, we are super hands-on in your life. I've had my first NHL player. It was a kid that was my best friend and is my best friend. One of my best friends, Josh Hosang, and he took me on when he was going through a lot in his career. And I mean, my first thing, he was a free agent with the Islanders. He wanted to get out. He just held out. And he was like, I need to put my career in the hands of somebody, the best person I can. And he chose me. That was him, like you said, an investment. That was an investment in me. And I think, I don't think, I know that I did a really, really good job with that, because it brought me to where I am today. My first thing I did was, and no one thought we would, and I remember someone recently told me, oh, I remember when you went viral for this. Because it went out that he was going to Russia, and I said some cheeky thing to the reporter, and it got a little viral. But I took the Islanders to arbitration. Like, I filed for arbitration against Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders, and with Josh Hosang. It was like, I remember people ripping me, and then people ripping. I remember one time, I never got mad at them ripping me, but one time someone went at Mac, so I really love Mac Miller. And I had tweeted a week before something about Mac Miller, and then someone commented on something I tweeted about Josh and was like, "And you like Mac Miller? You something?" I was like, "Fuck! What the hell? What's Mac? What does Mac do? It's crazy." That was, and like, I worked with the NHL really closely, the NHLPA, I should say, with the arbitration case. We brought it to 2 days before. And the Islanders are always, in my opinion, are always first class in the way that they handle things business-wise. People sometimes don't agree with that, but I don't care what they say. I've always loved dealing with them. And we got the deal we wanted, which was, at the time, a really, really good AHL salary. And we've seen a lot of players. Arbitration had been used prior to that, 4 AHL salaries very sparingly. It was very rare But people did it, but it was very rare. Since then, every year I've kept an eye on it. Every year since then, there's been an uptick in the amount of players that file for arbitration to try and get better American League salaries.
Pat, sorry to cut you off, but I need to know, and this is, I need you to explain, because I've always wondered about this, and I was like, I can't wait till Pat comes on because I can ask him this. Just in layman's terms, explain the process of arbitration. So when you hear it in the media, okay, this player's going to arbitration, and you're like, damn right he is. I need to know what.
Well, it's a very interesting process. Arbitration in general, I mean, there's a set of rules, procedures that we're following, and certain statistics that are admissible and certain pieces of evidence that aren't. So you're building out a case primarily based on comparable players. Everything is based hockey contract, any contract negotiation in sports and entertainment is based on comparables. Sports, I mean, I negotiated signing bonuses in Major League Baseball, like 250,000. That was all comparables. And you could just make your case. NHL arbitration, same thing. So you're building out your comparables. You're looking for a player that's in an identical situation in terms of their contract year, their free agency status, all of that. And we didn't go to arbitration. We settled 2 days before. But if we had, you have the ability to make a case. There are rebuttals. Then you can make it. There, every point you can have a rebuttal. If you talk about a certain, it's very detailed, very intricate. But there are points to talk about things that are a little bit less. It can get contentious. I've never done it myself at the NHL level, going into the arbitration room, and most agents don't do it on their own. They do it with the NHLPA staff. There's an individual named Roland Lee that handles a lot of it, and there is a whole team supporting you. So 25-year-old Pat wouldn't have had to do it on his own, but I did have to handle the negotiations on my own, and that for being my first NHL contract. I mean, to this day, it's one of my prouder things that I was generally speaking, I was a kid. I just got out of school, law school. I'd had my agency for about a year at that point, a little over. And my childhood team, my best friend, like the stakes are huge. And it went well. But arbitration is a peculiar process because the NHL is so culture driven. I think sometimes they go a little bit harder in on the some of the more sensitive points when you're arbitrating. So there's a whole lot of things. The statistics are easy. It's the other things that you can get a little bit sticky.
So the details though in arbitration, they bring pretty much everything, not only just character wise, but I'm talking like I've always heard stories about it, and maybe that again you can obviously speak on it a little bit more detailed, but they kind of bring everything about that person, because even though in those comparables, that's essentially it. Does it become more of a character?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it historically. There are situations where it's gotten bad. I mean, I forget the story. Mike Milbury in arbitration, making some Islander player cry. I've heard of that story a few times, but there's bad blood that comes from it. Yeah, like I think we're at an interesting point in hockey culture, but in sports culture and the general culture of the world, actually. But hockey, I think team is so strong over individual that if you get told you're not who you think you are, or there's a lot of area to have hurt feelings in a situation like that. It can shake up a lot of situations. I think it's also a very aggressive move when you file for arbitration. There are still some people that see it as sometimes not being deserving of it. So there are hurt feelings. Let's look at the hockey business. I think back, I always go to things in my childhood because it was very strong to me. But Brian Burke, when I think it was Dustin Penner got offer sheeted, and he said, "Well, who did he say it too low? Is it or somebody? I forget who he said it to, but that we'll go fight behind a barn." It was the quote. There's I don't think hockey people are known for hiding when it's I shouldn't say this because on the ice and the players are supposed to hide their emotions, but outside of it, people are very emotional. They think they're not, but I think that the business of hockey has been filled with emotion for a long time.
Yeah, those were just absolutely amazing points, and you're 100% right on kind of the sports culture as a whole. It's changed so much, even from when you first started, like to where we are now. Like it's changing every single day, and you have the inside scoop on pretty much all of it, especially the business side, from the NHL teams all the way down to the junior teams. And it's just, I'd love to hear your thoughts on just like the state of the game and really just like the business side of hockey and where do you think it's going to go? I mean, we talk about it on a lot of our podcasts, but there's been a lot of media traction for hockey, and like things are growing at a very, very fast rate and things are changing. And I know the NHL, and obviously I haven't been able to talk to any of them, but they're very stubborn. Everyone knows that they're very stubborn. They're very stuck in their old ways. And it's something that it's time to adjust and keep changing.
Yeah, I mean, I have an interesting kind of window. My life is really unique for someone working in hockey, and I mean, I don't think there's many people that work in hockey at the level that I do that also are very active in some of the fields that I'm very active in. I mean, I'm very involved in entertainment. I'm very involved in other sports. And I see what's popular and I see what sells and what brands want. And because I'm dealing with it, not just from a hockey lens, I'm dealing with it. They're coming to me for athletes of all different sports. They're coming to me for creators, influencers, celebrities, etc. I think hockey has an issue, or I'd say the past several years has had a tremendous issue in getting their players to have, and it's not just even the past few years, the name recognition is just not there. I mean, you and it's a point that's probably been beaten down in a lot of different worlds, but Connor McDavid, people don't know who Connor McDavid is. It's a reality because you play in the middle of Canada. You're not the most loud or different. You look at some of the names, and I see it in the checks I get for people in other worlds. The louder, more personality-driven people, I don't care what realm it is, baseball, football, influencers, housewives, it doesn't matter. The louder you are, that's where the money is. That's where you need name recognition. You need brands. There's a side of a feel good story. There's always the company culture. There's always the play that's a little bit less name driven. I think we're quickly moving away from that. I think we're moving back into a world which has always been there, but I think it's staying there. It's who you are. Like there's a lot of money out there. So the long and short of it is hockey needs to figure out ways to make these players personalities. The Tkachuk brothers, excellent. We're headed in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. Hockey is, I'm confident if I wanted to invest in a sport right now, I'd invest with probably hockey's in there, NHL. I would invest in women's sports. I think I was involved with an Amazon Prime NWSL, like a bunch of events recently, and I've gotten the ability to look at like where the league was from 2010 to 2020. They were playing in high school stadiums. Now they've got Amazon specials and they've got sold out 12,000 person arenas. Not all of them, but some of them. That's huge growth. You think about it, it's within 10 years. So women's sports, women's hockey, you've got a marriage of both, but I think soccer in the States obviously is something too I think is going to grow. But back to hockey, I think we need to do and people knock the Tkachuk brothers. How many people did we see about that? Like, obviously I want to see the other team talking crap. That's part of the game. That's part of everything, saying that they're focused on that side. But I saw so many people talking about Matt being on, what was it?
Kelsey's podcast.
The Kelsey's
Was
podcast.
it Kelsey or Jimmy? Was it Jimmy
Well,
Fallon?
yeah, and he went on Jimmy Kimmel.
Was it Kimmel or Fallon?
I think it might have been whatever. I mix them up all the time.
One of them. There's one of the Jimmys.
One of the Jimmys.
But like, he's on there. That's the stuff we need.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We need that. Like, other sports happens all the time. These guys are podcasting on game days in other sports. Let Matt going in there, being a guy mid-season, like the Kachuk brothers captivating the nation. Let's let these guys take the reins off. Like, it's, and you know what I can appreciate about myself too is that I can respect and appreciate the way that some organizations in the NHL operate, and still at the same time say that we all collectively, the teams specifically, etc., need to lessen the restrictions. I mean, the Yankees just announced that they're going to allow players to shave, to have a beard. There's only one team left. There's only one sport left where that's something. Like, it's all about, while you need players to be all in on the team and dogs, we can let's live in the gray a little bit. Why does it have to be black and white? Let's live in the gray, in game, work your self off, work as hard as you can, and be a part of the team. But after the game, show out, have a buzzy quote, go on Jimmy Fallon, do whatever you want. And then we all eat. Like, everybody eats. If we allow that to happen, more kids are going to play hockey. More kids, and it's so hard to play hockey. You have to really make these kids want it. And it's been an issue that I've always struggled with, is I don't want it to be a rich, and I'm not knocking it, but a rich, like, one background sport. Like, I want there to be tons of backgrounds. I want there to be people from all over the world. I want there to be people with all different makeups and etc. We need to make it cool.
Yeah,
that's my take. We don't have it cool enough right now. We're working towards it, but the cool factor has to be there.
I think the stigma also with hockey players too, right? Like, it's such a traditional sport, and I think now with, obviously, you've heard it revenue-wise, the NHL is in a good place, and also just with social media and younger players too. So now the younger generation is kind of just showing more personality, right? And that's amazing to see, where back in the days, it was kind of like, when I was taught that way, being a hockey player was like being respectful. You don't really, you're not really a quote unquote personality out there, opposed to a basketball player, or football player, because it was kind of like, nah, that's not how hockey players do it. Hockey players are traditional, respectful. But like you said, just having those small viral moments that are still within the person's character, and it doesn't seem like you're reaching a lot, but it just kind of like moves the game forward in that place where it's, oh, that's interesting. That's a personality that's marketable, that we can get behind, and it's good for the game. I think Four Nations, we've talked about it on this podcast before, it was really amazing because going into it, and I know you heard the same thing, it was just like people were very critical of it. Oh, we don't know how this is going to be. This is just going to be a fluff fest. Guys are just going to be out there mini vacation. And tell you, man, I've never sweat so much not playing and watching that Canada game. I was just like, it just juiced me up. And I think that's so good for the game, and just being able to be part of the game on that level, and being part of the personalities and the amazing people that are in hockey. I mean, that's why a big piece of why we're doing this is because there's so many amazing people that we have relationships with that are doing amazing things for the game on so many different levels, on the men's and women's side. And I think that kind of parlays into my next question. The next generation is something that's going to be listening to this. In your personal advice, a player is looking for representation. What are the steps? What's the best thing for them to do to kind of find the right representation, and more importantly, the best move for them, and when?
So the first step is to be good. Not everybody needs, if you're not good, you and it's a controversial take, But if people aren't willing to represent you for free, you probably don't need an agent. While the path is very complex, and I mean, if you're paying for an agent, I mean, I don't know. It's my opinion that you don't need an agent and you don't need one. If you're a good hockey player, you're gonna get found. What was the kid? He's 7 feet tall. The 08, 09, right? Is he 08 or 09?
I saw him. He's an 09. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, like I've watched that kid play, but he's out of nowhere, really. Over you look at where he's from. No one knew about him a year ago. You'll be found no matter where you are in this world. If you're good, you'll be found. So that's step one. Once you're found, I think I'm a big believer of vibes, energy. Don't get me started on it all, actually, because I'll just go. I'm really into vibes and energy, the universe, all that stuff. But when you get along with somebody, there has to be, first and foremost, there has to be some level of competency. I think there are plenty of really good agents that aren't attorneys. You've got plenty of good hockey people that are partnered with the agents, and you've got a setup where a youth hockey guy is partnered with an agent and something like that. Long and short, you got to go with somebody that has some level of competency. It could be a track record. It could be you trust them as a person, a professional. I always go into what an agent is. We all have glammed it up through our TV shows and everything, but it, like a fiduciary relationship, it's somebody that's acting on your behalf for your best interests. They have an obligation to do that. Who do you want to do that? If the guys, and I'm not saying I don't do this, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do this, but if the guy's going into a room dropping curses and looking like an idiot and acting like an idiot, and do you want? He's speaking for you. That's the literal. It's probably sit back and say, "Hey, is this right?" And for some, it may be. I think so. You've got that, and then also, are they bought in on you? I know agents out there and agencies that are thought to be really, really good agencies, and they have some really, really good players, but they also have many, many really, really bad players. I think I'm weird at my stage because I've been at so many stages in such a quick period of time. I was at a startup agency. I was at my agency. I was at a huge agency. So I've been involved with players that are at different levels. A player I took many years ago, Logan, I would have taken every year, but there were players that I took back then that I wouldn't take now. And that's just the reality of a career. I'm an agent, and I have my own professional development, professional career. And so do my clients. So you need to have the alignment. It needs to be the right alignment. But you need to have an agent that is all in on you. If it's an agency that's got 100 09s, right now 09s are pretty much locked down. So we're talking 10s and 11s. If an agency already has 70 of them, like, maybe not the right agency for you, because what that tells me is they're waiting to see who to cast away and who to retain. And then it's a numbers game. I think I would really, really value time. And it's something I would give advice to any kid, any person in life. Whoever invests time in you is a hell of a lot more important and should be valued than people that invest money. Money is nothing. I can give it and sell it and move it, and time is, I get one of it. Like, this day is this day, this date. It's never coming back. We have an hour to talk today. This hour is never coming back. And I think that dollar could come back to me. That $5,000 will come back. So I would always advise players to value time adequately. If an agent's not giving you time, let them go. Like, it's the least they can do. If you're expected to go out and play and perform, your agent needs to be able to give you. If a player, I don't think I've ever had a player tell me, like, we need to talk or I need to call, and us just not have it. But I've heard of plenty.
Oh my goodness.
NHL players. saying, I called my agent and I was like, can we talk? And he was like, oh, I'm with my kids. I'll call you tomorrow. And he never calls me back. Great. You have kids. I understand. But that's a job. You would get fired from your job, right? Like if you said to your boss, like, oh, today's bad, fine, but I'll call you tomorrow, boss. And then you just never called the boss back and just forgot what he talked about, you would be fired.
Yeah.
And when you're acting as an agent and you're as a fiduciary to somebody, my boss is no one other than my client. That is my boss. There's no other person that truly has control over me other than my clients.
I think you touched on so many good points, and God, I feel like I could talk to you for 3.5 hours about all this stuff. This hour just absolutely flew by. I still have a few more questions. So like you were saying, and I mean, I'll say it once we get off recording, but you know, this person way too well. And one of my good friends is his agent, doesn't hear from him for 6 months at a clip. And I'm just like, how is that even possible? He's a Division I hockey player and he doesn't hear from his agent. It's just, it's mind blowing to me. And it's very, very hard for me to wrap my head around, especially on that end. And you also touched on points with the kids and social media and everything. It's always changing. It's always growing. And I mean, to kind of parlay off of that and to close this out and wrap it up, what is the best story other than the OHL one? What is the best story that you've had throughout your time being an agent, and your best client story? Maybe it's something with contract or a draft or just something funny.
Well, I mean, the Hosang first contract was like my wildest moment, probably in my life. Like I'm interviewed in all the New York papers, and yes, I remember. Yeah, also like everybody's trying to find out who I am because and they were like they thought I had some master plan. Like famous people, hockey people. I remember one from ESPN calls me and he's, so what's your plan? And I'm a 25-year-old. I just have this company. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go get more players, but that's my plan. And they were like, okay. And I'm like, and I had other agents. I had reporters, all these people. They're like, what's your plan? I was like, I to get good players. Like, what are you doing later? Like, so I didn't really understand, but that was one. But funniest stories. I mean, I had a lot. Like me and Josh working together was like one day there'll be a movie about it. Like it was. I remember when he was in Sweden, they didn't have peanut butter he liked, and I was sending him care packages of all sorts of things that you couldn't get in Sweden. So every 3 weeks, it would be when I lived at home at the time. I'm 24, 25 years old. So it was me and my dad putting together care packages he was in Sweden before arbitration, I believe. And I had become his agent just prior to him going to Sweden. So I was like, I'm doing whatever this kid needs me to do. He's my best buddy. And I'm like, I got to get him whatever he wants. So that was wild. When he went to the Olympics in China during COVID,
he was a hell of a player, man. And he is a hell of a player. And he's amazing. I remember him on the Islanders and just the style that he had and just the speed and the skills. And I'm from Canada. So just hearing about him like coming up and we heard like he was projected like better than the best players in the NHL right now at a young age. So, I mean, he's so sick.
And you know what? I wish Josh was 17 now. I think if he was coming up now and people were a little bit more welcoming to him when he was younger, I think things would have came easier later. Let's take a step back. And I haven't talked about it a whole lot publicly, but I remember it all. I was buddies with him then, and now before I was his agent, and I was his buddy, and I was very close with him. And the hockey world treated him really harshly at the beginning, really harshly. I mean, he didn't hurt anybody. He was 7. He was a kid, and I think by the not trying to meet him halfway, I think the hockey world kind of lost him, and it becomes harder and harder when things don't get taught, you don't learn, you get scared. There's a big difference when you get publicly shamed and you get. I'll never forget in his draft year. I got to know him after his draft year, but someone said, "Oh, it'd be better if Josh was a basketball player instead of a hockey player." As someone in hockey said, and it was public, and I'm like, that affects somebody. That you start to internalize that. I'm not a hockey player. And some people are a little bit more sensitive than others. If we had an ounce of sensitivity as a hockey community, an ounce of sensitivity to him in those years, I think, because he wasn't perfect as a pro, he did make plenty of mistakes. Were they ever malicious mistakes? No. But if somebody had instilled confidence in him and supported him early rather than later, I think it'd be a different story. He's a tremendous human being. I don't think any one of his mistakes was ever malicious. They were stupid shit. Things that guys now get in trouble for all the time. Do people get, scratched or punished? Yeah, for sure they do still. But I think there's a huge, the NHLPA has done a great job with assisting player assistance program and things like that. Not that would have ever been relevant for him, but hey, there's parts that I think a little bit more sensitivity to him growing up would have been better. And it was just the world we were in, right? The world we're in 2012. I talk about it all the time now at 30. 2012 was a totally different world. Totally different. I can't even describe how different it is. But Josh was saying today, I hope he played a role and continues to play a role in helping hockey be more accessible to people that struggle with some of the things that he struggled with. And I think he's got a tremendous future. I don't think he's given up on playing, but I think he's got at some point a tremendous future off ice helping players. Guy, remember, called out so many players. I can't remember the story, but there was a guy that in his draft year, he told the Islanders they should go draft, and they didn't. And I wish I could tell. I wish I had it off the top of my head, but they were like, "You guys got to go draft this kid," and then he became a star. Who else? There's a ton of guys. I can't remember it off the top. What's his name? He was in Bridgeport. Then went to Florida. He was in Toronto. We'll get another time.
Yeah, we won't pry your brain too much right now. You dumped a lot on it.
I do want to say one thing which you touched on, which is, and it's kind of we start to wrap this up. The mental side of the game is such a huge piece, and Logan and I and our other partner Jay talk about it all the time. It's really part of the hockey journey, right? I'm a product of it. I mean, if we could be who we are at this age, at 17, it would be a completely different story. But I think there's also, and I think that's the with Josh as well, it's kind of all part of the story, right? It's all part of the journey. And that's something that that's really, and I say this all the time, Logan, I say this all the time, but it's really why we're doing this. There was an itch in our souls where there's a lot of unfinished business with our hockey careers, with mine too. It took a long time for me to really kind of be at ease with how it all ended. But I think this has helped me kind of really talk to a lot of different people in hockey to know that we're kind of united by that journey. And yeah, it's amazing. Every person we talk to, no matter what realm it is, we always come to this centralized point, and I think it's amazing. And Logan, you can kind of attest to that as well, right?
You need so many things. You need to put together so many things. And when I was 17, I was trying to find the next party I was trying to go to in high school. I could have committed myself a little more to the game and committed myself more to Patty and all the time that he put into me. But it's something that, I, like you said, I've come to grips with it at this point. I mean, 3 years being done with the game, it was a lot to kind of wrap my head around in the beginning, just stepping away from it. Didn't really know what I was other than a hockey player. And just all of this is just so amazing and having you on here is just, it's amazing. I feel like I'm 15 years old again and talking to you. And this was just such an awesome episode. I can't wait for everyone to listen to this.
Well, You made me go audibly awe. I appreciate that so much, man. And like, I love these types of conversations. It's so important. I mean, I'm super, I don't know if you can tell, I always get very introspective or very, whatever the word is, very out there. But I think hockey, we all love hockey so much. Like, it's part of being a hockey person. You always say that if you're a hockey fan, there's either you don't care about the sport or you love it to death. And I think people talk about the hockey community in all these very descriptive terms. The reality is when you share something you love with anybody, it's a huge bonding opportunity. That's how humans bond, is through shared passion and shared love and shared all these things that we can all circle around and say, this is something that means something to us. And we all love, everybody that likes hockey loves it. So I think using it as, and moving on from a hockey career, it's very symbolic for life. Like growing up, we all have to let a part of ourselves die, whether it's or the transition from being in high school to college to real life, your 20s to your 30s to your 40s. I think hockey, the different phases of it, from a player to a fan, or from a player to a coach to a fan, or whatever it is, you learn a lot about who you are as a person through those moments of change. And being able to come together with guys like you and talk about our shared love is a nice little reprieve from my, what day is today? Thursday?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I know we say it a lot on our podcast, but like anyone who gets the time and experience with Patty, it's hockey is a better place with you. You make hockey a better place. You made my life a better place. And I can't recommend anyone, young kid listening to this, go send him an email. We'll put it in the link. Send him an email. Go reach out. He'll give you advice. I know he's a busy man, but he's also just one of the most down to earth people ever. And this episode, I know I said it, but this episode was amazing.
Patty, I would love to bring you on periodically and just kind of for us layman people, just be able to explain these things we hear in the agent player world. And just, that would be an amazing little segment that we could do with you. But
agent correspondent, I'm down.
Yeah, exactly. But I do, on that note, I can't thank you enough. We've been so blessed to this point with the people that we've kind of had on the podcast. Just being able to, again, share amazing stories, build the community together. It's been amazing. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
My pleasure. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Like, I'm down to come on anytime you want. Obviously schedule permitting, but this was awesome. You guys are both beauties. Like, Logan, I love you. Frank, I'll love you sometime. Like, yes. I love you. I love you. Like, I'm always around. So we'll make it work. Let's do it again.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate you, man.
No worries. Talk to you later.
Boys, that's a wrap.
Thank you so much for Patty Bedell joining the show. I mean, so much information for me to even know the legal terms and also the explanations of arbitration, which is something that I've always wanted to know. But it's so amazing to know what goes on behind the curtain of those player and organization meetings and situations like that. So again, amazing guy. And I think the roster of players and what he's done for himself in his career, it's amazing and well-deserved.
Can't say it any better. I mean, I have bias, of course, but I have the absolute best relationship with him. He's just unbelievable. One of my best friends until the day I die. And just on top of it, an elite business person, an elite advocate for anyone, and such a good agent. He's unbelievable at what he does. And I'm just so excited to see what he keeps doing in his life, in his professional life and personal. I will always be there for him. I know I'm getting a little emotional here, but he's the best. And we love you guys. We love you guys so much. Thanks for always tuning in and looking at our ugly mugs and sometimes my bad lighting. Frank always looking very nice, but we appreciate you guys. Seriously, wouldn't be possible without you guys or our amazing and wonderful sponsors of the show, Buddy Hockey Club, Best Damn Tape, Cut Shield Hockey, and Bambino Shave Cream.
Guys, we love you. See you on the next one.